Our society is obsessed with being scared. It's strange, right? We don't really like to be scared, because being chased by a real live-axe murderer in the middle of the night is not very much funny. But we absolutely love to be fake scared. Mostly for the adrenaline. That's the one thing roller coasters, horror films, and base jumping all has in common. It's fun to be scared. Actually, it's addictive. Once you start, you won't be able to stop. And going a step further, some of you will Google all of these crimes and lay there in your beds terrifying yourselves that the same axe murderer who killed Jane Doe 50 years ago is going to come crashing through your door. Normally we would say not to worry. Seriously, these things are rare. But, in this case we're going to have to apologize for not being so reassuring. The reason for that is that these crimes haven't been solved. In other words, the killers, murderers, and psychopaths in this list are still on the loose. The original Night Stalker. This serial killer was active in California between 1979 and 1986. He raped at least 50 women and murdered 10 people. The name given to an unidentified serial killer and rapist who has been connected to 13 murders and more than 50 sexual assaults in California. Why is it that the original Night Stalker isn't just called the Night Stalker? Original Night Stalker's attacks weren't all linked together until well after many of the other Night Stalker crimes had already been committed. Between 1976 and 1979, a string of more than 50 sexual assaults were committed against women. Authorities believed all the attacks to have been carried out by the same person due to their similar The Brabant Killers. Belgium's most notorious unsolved crime spree, between 1982 and 1985, a series of violent attacks left 28 dead and 40 injured. Serial killers who would commit a series of robberies and mass shootings in Belgium. Their last raids occurred after 2 years of silence. On September 27 they robbed a supermarket and 15 to 25 minutes later raided another supermarket. These 2 raids resulted in 8 people being killed. Then on November 9, their final raid occurred at yet another supermarket, resulted in 8 more people being killed. This was mainly done by the killer who justified it as shooting witnesses. Police arrived before they managed to leave, however the gang drove off and the police lost them after half a kilometer. Their last sighting was of a gang member on the ground seriously injured. Forensic examination done years later found evidence of a weapon being fired, leading police to believe that a gang member was possibly executed. The case has never been closed and has led to the reform of the Belgian police. It's believed that they were simply a psychopathic group of criminals, however some theorize their attacks were assassinations disguised as senseless murders. One gang member's DNA profile has been established yet lacks a match. Due to mishandling of the evidence and considerable time since the incidents, it is unlikely the case will ever be solved. The Icebox Murders. After Charles Rogers murdered and dismembered his abusive father and mother, he disappeared and was never heard of again. The police found his parents in their freezer. On June 23, 1965, Houston police officers took a look inside a Montrose home where they had been asked to check on an elderly couple. After opening the freezer, police realized the butchered hog meat they were looking at was actually human flesh. Edwina Rogers, 79 years old, had been beaten and shot. The killer had smashed in 81-year-old Fred Rogers' head with a hammer, gouged out his eyes and removed his organs. The lone suspect was their 43-year-old son Charles Rogers, who lived with his parents. Charles Rogers vanished without a trace, but the Gardenas think that They know what happened to him and detailed their work in a heavily researched book released in 2003. The Gardenias contend that Rogers was a brilliant geophysicist with powerful connections who harbored deep resentment against his parents, after suffering years of abuse, mental and even financial problems at their hands.